Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to another episode of Cities Skylines. And last time out, we built this little amusement park on the water's edge, next to the downtown, next to the movie studios. And I think it turned out quite nicely. We've got our little haunted forest over here with the scary red lights, which if I see someone going down there, I will do a first-person tour of at some point. And we've got a nice little rock detailing, our water detailing. As the kind of Auridon theme seems to be around the downtown area, we introduced that into the little amusement park as well. Alongside lots of extra prop detailing, lots of natural detailing to turn it into, I think, quite a nice, cute little park space there. And of course we also put in our Theatre of Wonders for our Auridon Oscars, or whatever the event might be called. All the celebrities turning up. Hopefully, anyway, for their movie premieres after filming in the movie studios. That's the type of thing we were going for here with our little helipad on the corner. And of course, we also have had a stream since the last episode where we came in and created this little movie scene out the front here of this car chase, this car going over the edge of the quays at Prepare to Market, the guy hanging onto the edge, someone down in the water here on their car, burning up in the water. I'm not sure how that's scientifically possible, but we went with it. And I think, again, it turned out all right. Lots of film crew dotted around, a news crew as well, all part of the set. And, yeah, all of our policeman assets chasing down these car thieves. And actually, just noticing it now, but the view down to the downtown from Prepare to Market is starting to look really rather nice there as well. It's all kind of slowly coming together in the downtown area. But that was a fun stream, so thank you all so much for the support on that. It was a good laugh. And before we come on to today's episode, I do want to give the movie studio a name. Now, I asked you guys on the community tab to vote for some of my favourite suggestions, and the one that has come out top, at the time of recording this at least, was Universal Studios with 32% of the vote, and that was a suggestion by Danny Baker. Thank you so much for that suggestion. Absolutely love it. And I know it was a popular suggestion amongst many of you in the comments as well. So, yeah, there we have it. We have Universal Studio. Really nice play on words there. I like that a lot, even though it is named after me, which is slightly odd. But there we go, we've got our Universal Studios in Auridon just as the sun is coming up for the day. So thank you so much for all of your votes on that and all of your suggestions that came in for that name. I think it's turned out pretty nice. Now for today, we are going to be turning our attention over to this island for a really quite special build that I have basically been planning since the start of Auridon. As many of you will know who have been on streams, I'm a massive Formula 1 fan, and I've been waiting a long time to give Auridon its Formula 1 track. So that is what we are going to be doing today. So I think just to start off with today, we are going to take a little trip to Google Earth. And so here we are at the Algarve International Circuit. Now this is home to the Portuguese Grand Prix. I play a lot of the F1 game as well when I'm not recording and playing cities or working or having a life. And this is actually one of my favourite tracks to drive, which is why I've chosen it here for inspiration. I absolutely love the layout of the track with some fast swooping corners and much tighter hairpin style corners. So I think this is going to be a fun one to build, and it's going to fit into our space really nicely in Auridon. It's relatively compact as well, which will make it fit a bit nicer into the space that I've chosen. Now there are lots of little things from this that we can take for inspiration, not just the track layout, but in terms of where the grandstands are positioned, the pit lane entrance and exit, and these massive car parks at the front with a little bit of bush detailing in between them. Really long filled out car parks there. I also want to take a bit of inspiration from this road layout coming into the circuit. So these two roundabouts here with this road swooping around the edge. And then we also, to note, have this service road which runs the full length of the track here, which I'm assuming just gets people round easily and also helps to unload those vehicles when there are crashes. There's also an internal network, as we can see here, running all the way around with a little underpass underneath the track this side as well. This is how they seem to get into the backstage area, the loading area, the hospitality area for all of the teams there. So that's what we will be using here. Now clearly this is a very different temperature climate biome to Auridon, so some of the landscaping is going to be quite different, but the main basis that we are going to use from this is the layout of the track, which we are going to try and replicate fairly closely. Everything else will be a little bit freeform, as we know. Now, the other thing that I did want to look at here as well was this highway exit that we have going out to the track, because this is quite a cute little kind of semi-dog bone exit here. And it also has this speed kind of fast lane that bypasses the roundabout here to go straight on up towards the track. So again, I'll be using this to try and form our highway network. It's going to be slightly different as we have less to put on this side of it, where we're on the island, where we're going to position it. But yeah, we'll be using this as a basis for how we're going to do our highway intersection coming up to the track today. Okay, so back in Auridon, I think the first thing to do is to check out our terrain here. Now, I don't want a completely flat track, but we are relatively flat in this area, which will make it easier to put in our track to start off with. And then what we'll do is kind of use some of the landscapes there to accentuate some of the heights in between it. So I won't be copying exactly the height map of the Portuguese Grand Prix track. However, we'll be kind of using it a little bit and forming it around the landscape that we already have, and then accentuate in some areas so we get a little bit more height in some places, to make it a bit more of an interesting ride. So to start off with, I will just go ahead and clear out all of our trees from this area. This is the place that we're going to be putting the track, with some of it kind of wrapping around this little cove, this little bay area there. So let's clear out all of the trees from here, so we've got a nice clean template to work from. Now, I had a massive debate with myself about whether to try and keep this track a little bit more vanilla or whether to use the workshop. But there are assets on the workshop by Ronix69 which are just too good to be true. They are literally F1 racing track assets, so we can have F1 cars driving around our track. We can have proper pit lane depots, we can have proper barriers, a proper racetrack. So that is what I am going for today. There'll be a link to these assets in the description if you want to go and check them out. They are literally amazing. And I hope you guys will appreciate this in the build today, because it really makes such a realistic, true to life racetrack that it was just too good to pass up in this instance. And of course, if you do want to see more of a vanilla style racetrack, you can go ahead and look at my dirt track that I built in the ILOS cable with overcharged egg, which I will also put a link to in the description below. So starting off with, we are just going to lay out our track, and then we can think about the road network around it. Now, I've got Google Earth open on my other screen, and I'm going to try my best to copy this track. It will be slightly different, but we'll try and get it as close to that layout as we possibly can. And there we go. So the next thing that I do want to do is go ahead and add in the little tiny track adjustments that are there in real life on F1 tracks, where they can just change up the track layout for different formulas or different genre of racing. So we'll go ahead and mirror exactly what they've got in the Algarve International Circuit. And there we go. So when it comes to the detailing as well, we will be putting in dotted white lines or solid white lines here to mark out where the actual track is. And within Traffic Manager as well, because we are going to have actual F1 cars driving around here, I am going to ban all traffic on these little extra bits so that we don't have cars going round them, so that they do actually follow the whole track as they are meant to be. So yeah, we've got this little chicane here on the first corner as well, which is not part of the main F1 circuit, and then again this little straight bit here. So just banning all traffic on them will make sure that the F1 cars don't drive around those little extra bits. So now, final thing in terms of laying out the track is the pit lane. Now the pit lane in Algarve runs almost the full length of this straight here. So I believe they come in from about here and then run up parallel to that. So what we will do is snap into the road guidelines and we'll go all the way up to about there. And then we will join it into the track nicely. So we want a really long run up for this, something like that. And what we can use for these ends is a bit of node controller here, just to square this all off. So we are going to have to remove some nodes from this. I mean, this whole build is absolutely a node killer, that is for sure. So yeah, just a bit of node controller with a bit of offset here helps to level that all out. So I think that that is generally looking okay. Now we are going to need a bit of fencing up in between here, but what I would like to do is just actually move this just slightly closer to the track so that it looks a little bit more packed in than what we've got right now. So I'm thinking about there, and then we just want to make sure that all of these nodes are snapping in. So yeah, lots of markings and lines needed here for the pit entry. So we've got that white line, do not cross, otherwise you get a penalty line. Okay, so next up, what I would like to do is have a little look at the height of this track, because at the moment, if we come down to ground level, you can see there are a few lumps and bumps, which we definitely don't want along the start-finish straight. I mean, that would be like a roller coaster if you were in an F1 car. But we do also want to create some layers of height in this as well, because at the moment it is, generally speaking, very, very flat. So what I will do now is go around and create some different heights. So let's just start off by looking at the terrain height map here, and we'll firstly level out our start-finish straight. So what I do want actually is a piece of road right about here that we are going to level the height to. So if we just click on this node, make sure it's level with that one, and then what we are going to do is grab all of our nodes across the start-finish straight like that and level them to this height. Now let's just have a little look at what that's done. So yeah, it's pushed it down here a little bit. So we're going to need to do some sloping and some terrain conforming here. I think with this corner, what we will do is all the way up to that point is make that all level again with the start finish straight. And we'll come through and smooth out the terrain as we go round afterwards. And then let's start to raise up some of these nodes a little bit. So in fact, I will actually make this point slightly higher. So we're just going to page up using Move It just a touch here. And then what we'll do is use Network Multi-Tool with the slope function and slope this all the way back down to this node here. So we get a nice smooth gradient for those F1 cars. And it comes up to a much higher height here. And then similarly, let's grab all of these nodes here and level them out to this height. So we get a nice level, slightly higher bit of the track up here. And again, what I do want is these nodes around this corner aligning to this height, but also actually being slightly higher, I think, here. I think we're going to have quite a steep drop down to the water at this point. So what we will do here is, again, let's use a little bit of slope tool, actually, and we'll slope down around this corner. So you're coming uphill as you come around here up onto this top relatively flat bit. And again, this is not exactly like it is in Portugal. So this is where we're giving the Portuguese track a little bit of our own freeform Auridon touch here. But then on this side, I would like all of these nodes quite a bit higher, I think. So let's grab all of those and we're going to page up a fair amount, actually, on this side, so that we've got this nice layer of height between this side of the track and the other side. So again, we'll use slope function and we'll create some smooth slopes here. So I think we will just run from there down to here. And that's going to be a relatively steep slope, but I think that that should be 6%, should be okay for the F1 cars. Quite a ride as you go up there. And then again, similarly, coming down this other side, let's make sure that this node is aligned to this height here. So we'll need to use Move It for that. We'll just click on that node, Control H onto this node. And again, let's make sure that's nice and flat in the middle. And then we can use Network Multi-Tool again to slope down this side. So that's going to be slightly flatter there. And then we'll also slope down this side again so that, yeah, we're getting some nice undulations, I think, in here now. Some nice different changes in height. So a bit of a steeper bit here, a little bit more flowy around the other sections. And then just in this little corner, what I would like to do is actually then just move these down a little bit so they're sunk into the ground a little bit more. Again, so we're getting a slightly different layer of height as we come around this area. So we'll use Slope Tool again just to create some nice smooth connections there. And that does mean this chicane as well would go slightly downhill from this point, which I think is fine. So let's use Move It, and we'll just make sure that that height is aligned here. And then again, we just want to use the slope function just to give ourselves a nice smooth slope up this side. So 3.5, I think, around that corner seems okay. Not too bad. So that should give us some nice different height changes within it. And, you know, it's not extreme. It's not extreme. It is subtle, but I think that that's what we want here. So let's just go ahead and smooth up all of the terrain around the outside. So the next stage is actually to add in our road network around it, because we do want service roads running around the entire thing. Also access, obviously, to the kind of backstage, hospitality, team area in the middle here. Also a couple of VIP areas in the middle as well that we need to get road access to. So in order to do that, what we are going to use is just our concrete pavement roads, the plain roads, which I think kind of looks similar to what we saw on Google Earth there as well. So now this may require a little bit of adjusting as we come round, but we will give it a go. So over here, as these are two very different layers of height, what I do want is this road to kind of form a slight cliff between both layers here. So we are just going to bring it round. We'll turn snapping back on. Bring it round this edge nice and smoothly like this, and then start to slope it down into the middle here. Because this is going to go actually to a building which I'm trying to sort of replicate the lookout tower, or the kind of VIP tower that is actually in the Algarve International Circuit. So I think what we're going to use here is an office asset for that. Now, we don't have anything that looks exactly like it, but obviously I want to try and use vanilla assets wherever possible. So the asset that I think is probably most appropriate for here is actually this office asset, which also quite nicely has a helipad on top. So you can kind of imagine the VIPs coming in and stopping there. So let's just position that. And what we will do is put this kind of right on this hairpin end here. So you can imagine people looking out of their private viewing booths down onto this hairpin and round almost the whole track actually from the top of this building. You get really good viewpoints around a lot of it. So that's what we want to see there. And then from this, what we do want to do is bring a road all the way round the outside. Now we want to make sure that we're leaving enough room for grandstands and the such like. So I am going to leave a fair gap, which again is what we actually see on Google Earth around here. And again, we might need to do some adjusting for this as we go around and put in our grandstands. But for now, let's just lay out the formation of it. So we can get a little bit closer here, I think. And then we'll sweep out around the outside because we want to leave space, obviously, for runoff areas and the such like as we go round this track. So we'll bring this round this side again, kind of following that shape of the track down here and round this final bend, again leaving plenty of space for runoff areas, and this may be adjusted as mentioned as we come further into the track build. But then we will just bring this all the way along the pit front here, which will run through a substantial sized car park when we come to add that at the front here. And then just joining up there. Now we do need access into the middle here. So what I am going to do is actually form a little bridge in the track round about here where we can bring this road through. So we're just going to anarchy it in for now. We'll bring it out into the middle of the track here, round this way. And then what this also does do is give our service vehicles access, or the recovery vehicles access to the whole track as well, which is something that is obviously in place within these Formula 1 circuits. So we'll just bring this in like this for now, and then we'll think about the layout for that when we come to do our pit area there. Okay, so the next thing that I do want to do is have a think about road access into the track. Now, we have only got this highway that runs through this island here, straight through the downtown, and then you'd actually have to go all the way down to this junction in order to get round for it from this side. Now, I am not about to put a bridge across the Liberty Rock here and ruin the aesthetic of this, so that will absolutely stay. But what we can do is give them just a second option from the downtown, where we have got a lot of residents living over this side. So I think that might help with traffic here. So we'll go ahead and grab just a 4-lane road, and we'll bring it out from this point in a raised segment so we can go up and over the river here. I'm actually just going to pause it because I've seen a ferry coming past and I want to use that. So let's just drop that in here. We'll turn off collision so that we can get it nicely across the river without breaking those rocks. And then we will just bring it back down to earth this side like so. Okay, now that we've got the ferry running underneath, let's just let it sit there and we can check the height of this. So I'll grab these 3 nodes here and we'll just raise them up just a tiny bit for those ferries. Yeah, so that's good there. And then what we'll do is just use the move it slope function just to give ourselves some nice gentle slopes either side. And I think what I will do as well for aesthetic purposes is upgrade these 4 segments into the bridge segments, because that just looks really nice going across the water there, I think. Okay, so then down this side, what I want is for this road to flow quite nicely around the edge of the track here. So we'll bring it in quite close to the highway, which gives us a space for more detailing opportunities. So let's turn collision off before we forget. And we'll just bring that in roughly parallel to that highway here. Now what I would like is a road that is going to be in line with the grid of here so that we can get some really nice car parks in there, which are nicely evenly spaced. So let's bring out a road here and then we can delete off our guidelines. And then we can join these up with a nice smooth bend this end, like so. And then for here, what I will do is actually start to curve this around the slope. And I think we are going to leave this as a little bit of a dummy road for future development. So we will just bring it in and just leave it like that for now. Now in future streams we could think about what could go here. I'm considering maybe a campsite for the visitors to the Formula 1 track, potentially just a very small little village out on this peninsula here. We won't be covering that in this episode, but again, these are all ideas that we can utilise in future streams or episodes. Now we do also want connection up to the highway here, clearly, and I'm thinking this is going to be the best space for our intersection. So what I'm going to do is just a really basic dog bone intersection here. But that'll be the general shape of our dog bone, which I think works okay. Should be all right. We'll find out. We'll find out. Not too sure about this junction here, but I think that is better bringing that into one node rather than separating it out. And then we've got the expressway taking them down to the Formula 1 track. Okay, so now that we have got all of the road infrastructure in, what I do want to do is turn my attention back to the track quickly. And this is looking at putting in curb decorations all around all of the corners and the such like. So now as part of this racetrack pack by Ronix69, there are racetrack pavements is what they're called, but the green kind of asphalt that goes round corners. And we also have the curb, the red and white striped curbs as well. So I am super excited to get these in. And what we're going to do here is we are going to put them around all of these corners where it would be appropriate too. So what we're looking out for here is where there is a corner where you're turning on in the inside, that's where the curb is usually. And then obviously as they go around the corner, they cut to the inside, so the curb would be around here and then come back to the outside as they drive around, which would be the racing line or the quickest line to take for them. So again, the curb would flip to the other side over here. So that is what we're going to go and do all around this track. And this is quite a monster of a job and it's going to use an awful lot of nodes, but it's going to be totally worth it. So we're going to put in corners like this. I'm going to turn off snapping for this so that we can get it in nicely. But I find the best way to do it is like so, and then use and move it to get it all nicely into place. So if we position that there, then what we can do is bend this round the bend really nicely. And then just drop it into place either side. Slight adjustment on the nose here to make sure that that is absolutely perfectly into the corner there. And this is going to be quite a fiddly task to get in absolutely perfectly and around all of the corners that we got on this track, which is a lot, but it is 100% going to be worth it. And then on some corners as well, we can start to add in the green asphalt. So I think actually around here, what we will do is probably do it around this outside corner. So again, I'm just going to put in a strip like this and use move it to position it. So we'll just grab this other node here, position it out there and grab the segment and bend that round the outside of the track. And then what we will do here actually is continue this on up this straight and round this corner. So again, I'll just put it in straight and then use move it to bend it how we like it, which I've just found is the easiest way to use these networks. So yeah, something like that, but we do want to try and get it a little bit more evenly spaced around the outside of the track. So we haven't got kind of bits that are a little bit narrower and bits that are a bit wider and it looking a little bit all over the place. So again, it's pretty fiddly to get this in, but we can do it. We can do it. Again, just to finish it off, we'll just curve it around into the side of the track at the ends here. So just like that, so that it kind of bends in. We'll come back to that side in a second. So again, with the curbs here, what we will do is start it from probably about there. So we'll do a segment out, and we don't want to snap into the nodes here. Segment out like that, a strip like this, and then a centerpiece connecting both of those. And that's where we get the widths right, because it starts from a narrow point when you click and goes to a wider point unless you are joining up two corners. Again, we'll just move this into place, trying to find the segments here, and as we get more and more segments around this track, it's going to be trickier and trickier to pick them up, but this is all part of the fun, right? I hope so anyway. Now, this is an absolutely key feature of a racetrack, so I'm very keen for this to be 100% realistic and where they would be placed around a normal track. So again, I am using Google Earth as a guide here to inform where these curves should be, looking at the Algarve International Circuit, of course. So yeah, something like that I'm quite happy with. So this is what I will now do around the entire track, on every corner and on some straight segments as well. So I'm going to do that in a time lapse because of the fiddliness, and I'll be right back. so there we go. So yeah, there's an awful lot of nodes used up in this. I've just been round the entire track and added in curbs where appropriate. So where essentially the drivers are going to do their driving line. So from the outside here onto the inside of the curb as they come round, back onto the outside. Coming down to the start finish straight, I couldn't find a checkered pattern actually to put in here. So I have just made use of the lines that I've got and put in a slightly diagonal line. Not perfect, but I think it will do. We then have epic grids coming all the way up our start finish line here up to the start line right at the front there. We keep going, and I've used a bit of intersection marking tool on the entrance and exit to the pit lane just to mark where that is in the traditional F1 fashion. Again, actually used a bit of intersection marking tool on these as well to mark off the track and where we want the cars to go. And then just, yeah, much of the same all the way around, just lots of this green asphalt runoff with the red and white curbs as we go round. And yeah, I think it's all kind of looking generally quite nice. I missed a bit of intersection marking tool there. I'll come back and do that. But it does require an awful lot of detailing still. I've put in a couple of sections where we have got this fence running up alongside it, which I think just adds a little extra detail in there, particularly up the start finish straight as well. Obviously we'd want protection from the crowds, that will be this side, and from the pit lane and the pit crews, that will be this side, which we will come onto. But it is slowly starting to come together. It's starting to look more like a racetrack now that we've got those old famous red and white curbs come in. So next up, what I want to do is place the grandstands. Now, again, I have got a few assets for this, and the grandstands that we are going to use are these, part of the modular sports pack on the workshop. Again, there will be a link below. And we have a few different types. So we've got this one with the little viewing platform. We have this one without that little box in it. And then we also have some much lower bleachers, this style of thing. So what I want to do is place these all around the track in appropriate locations. So we're definitely going to have some around this big corner here. Lots of good viewing points around there. Certainly up and down this straight, obviously on the start-finish line. And then a few more dotted around, potentially some smaller stands, maybe one even in the middle as well for those lucky enough to get inside track tickets. But just starting at the start-finish line, I definitely want to put some of these in. So they do need road connections. However, we are, for the start-finish line, going to do something a little bit different with them. So what I'll do is just put in a row of these for now. And I'm thinking we will leave some small gaps actually in between them. Okay, so now on the start finish straight, I do want to make it a little bit more special. So in order to do this, we are going to have to do some bob work for this. And I'm going to have to get rid of the lights, but let's get in the assets first and then we can see how it looks. So what I actually want behind this is some offices, which I think will give quite a nice effect sitting behind these. Now there is one office asset in particular that I have in mind for this, which has a really nice top to it, which reminds me quite a lot of start finish line straights in general. So let's go ahead and put this in, and we do actually want it this way round. So we'll put in a few of these like this, and then what we will do is use Move It. Now the reason why I like this asset is because of this slanty diagonal glass roof on the top. I think it just works so well as a viewing platform overlooking a start finish line straight. So that is what we are going to go for. So yeah, I think if we align up the roofs nicely, yeah, what we get is this pattern. The fence is slightly dodgy there, so we just need to be wary of that a little bit. But let's just move these two up and see what we're working with here. So I'm not going to do it the entire way up, but we will do it most of the way. So I'm just going to move this up into the back of these bleachers right here. And you see the light is poking out the top, which we might be able to get away with, but it does look a little bit strange. So I think we will bob them off in just a second. So then let's keep this pattern going. So just making sure that we're lining up those roofs there. So what I want is really this pattern running all the way down. So actually let's just delete out these bleachers, and then we can copy the whole lot from the other side now that we're happy with that configuration. And what I will do actually is just grab a couple more of these offices just to extend this pattern up right up to the end of this bleacher set here. And I also love the fact that it's got that open balcony with the tables on the end as well. I think that just all works together so nicely. But perhaps what we might need to do actually is move these up just a touch. so that they are merged in together. And then what that will do is give us this nice continuous flow alongside the front, and then it's pretty equal actually either side as well. So I think that that will work nicely. So right, let's grab all of our buildings here. So we will select buildings for starters, grab all of those, and then let's copy that. And we will just copy this pattern down. I think we'll do this here over the start finish line. So I think what we will do as well is just move this up so it's more aligned with where the cars are actually starting, and that start finish line there. That'll be all opposite the pit garages that we'll have in here as well. So that will be quite exciting. And then what we can do here as well, let's just copy these over so that we've got a couple more of these in here, making use of this like infamous start finish line straight here. And again, a bit of general admission standing space in front of these I think is a good thing to do here, and quite realistic for these types of tracks. So yeah, this is absolutely the type of effect that I want to go for, with these kind of like windows, private balconies as well for the really rich people down overlooking the pit lane, overlooking the start finish straight. Lots and lots of grandstands up this area, and it just helps to give those grandstands a little bit more importance there I think as well. So I do like how that has turned out. So what I'll do now is go through and put in some more grandstands around the track and be right back. Okay, so that is all of the grandstands placed in, and if we just go around, so yeah, we've got a few dotted around here, and I quite like the fact that they are higher up than the track. So we're going to do a nice big run-off area here, clearly with barriers to protect those viewing public. A couple of little of the smaller bleachers around the front here as well I thought was a nice touch for those people in general admission. A couple of big grandstands at the top here again. We'll need some barriers and some detailing along this edge to kind of get rid of some of that sort of tearing in the terrain here. And then lots of grandstands coming around this sort of final bend, going round to the start finish straight there. So I think that's all kind of come together. We've also got one actually in the middle here as well, overlooking this hairpin. And again, like this one's got quite a nice height to it. It sort of looks down over the rest of the track as well, although there will be a bit of detail in here, so some of those views will be blocked. But I think that gives us a nice selection of grandstands around the track. So the next thing that I want to come on to is the pit lane. And as part of the Formula One pack as well, there are pit lane stands and pit lane race depots. Now with these, and this is the really exciting bit for me, is this is actually acts as public transportation. So what we can do is create a bus line around the track with F1 car assets as the buses, so that the F1 cars actually drive around the track. And this is why I'm just so super excited. And this is not something that you can achieve within vanilla, obviously. So this is really the main reason why I've gone for these workshop assets as opposed to trying to create a racetrack using vanilla assets. So I'm like so excited to get these in. So they do need to be up against a road, but they do operate when we put them onto the racetrack. So what I'm going to do for now is actually just plop a few down here, and then we will use Move It, and we'll hold Alt so we get a nice spin to it. So all of these should be aligned. And then we'll bring them down and up next to the racetrack. So this is going to form our pit lane here, these assets. So what I'll do now is just place a few in and get our pit lane going there. And so there we go. So we've got a really nice long pit lane, and there should be garages for all of the cars that we've got in terms of the number of grid places that we've got on the grid starting line here, which I just had to do for my own OCD purposes. But there we go. So we've got our little pit lane in. Now, one other thing that I do want to put onto this is somewhere to have a podium as well, which can be quite an important feature in an F1 race. Now, struggling a little bit for what assets to use for this, but I think I'm going to use a couple of offices. So I think this one turns out quite nicely, and we're going to have to use spawn points to adjust things. So if we merge this one in here, it gives quite a nice little door on the corner there, where I was imagining drivers could enter and head on up to the podium, as it were. And then behind it, I do want to put a slightly higher building just to give it a bit more importance. So I'm thinking the one that I'll use is this one. And if we merge it into the back here, and we're going to have to sort out the road network behind it, what it does is gives quite a nice little backdrop to our flat front podium area. And we can come in and put some props in here to make this a little bit more podium-like. I'm hoping I can put some kind of prop fencing around it to give it a little bit of a wall here. but they would be very high up over the track. It would be some great views from the grandstand looking up to the podium. Maybe a little bit tall, but trying to make the most of the assets that we do have here. And then we, of course, in the pit lane do also want a race control building. And the one that I'm thinking I'm going to use for this is this building here, which is kind of an interesting shape. And yeah, I think it could fit in quite nicely here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a whole entrance off down from the pit lane here. We'll put in a lot of detail and a lot of surface painter to concrete this up. We'll have this situated close to the track around about here as a bit of a race control FIA building, as it were, just sitting over there. So now before I come on to the detailing behind the pit lane, let's go ahead and really excitedly get some F1 cars driving around our track. So yeah, in order to do this, what we need to do is add in a bus line. Now, it's a little bit tricky because I've only got the one pit lane for them to stop in. I don't really want them stopping on the rest of the track. So we are just going to have to make this a basic loop with a couple of stops in the pit lane like so. And then if we complete that line, what we can do, let's just pause it. We go to select vehicle types. We can choose our F1 cars, which again come as part of these assets on the workshop from Ronix. And then, yeah, let's see how it goes. So let's do that. We'll call this line F1 racetrack. And we'll make sure we've got our vehicles here. Now, it's saying only 2 vehicles. Obviously, I want a lot more cars than that driving around the track. So we are going to add in a load. And I think we'll probably stop at 10 for this. Just because that feels like, yeah, that feels like enough to make the track look busy. We could go even higher. But one other thing I would like to do is just a little bit of an Easter egg for Auridon is call these after different racing drivers. So I'm going to go through the top drivers in the championship at the moment. So we'll call the first one Verstappen. And that's just a nice little Easter egg for the cars driving round the track in Auridon. Here we go. We've got another one here. Let's call this one Leclerc. And I'll go through and name all of those in and around all of the detailing as I see those cars. But there we go. We have got the start of our pit lane there. And I do also want to put in a lot of marking. So I will finish this off when it comes to the detail and time lapse. But for pit lanes, they do obviously have markings outside of their garage. So I'm thinking what I will do for this is just use these basic lines. And it's going to be pretty simple. We'll just have lines like this. Maybe with a shorter one in front just to mark the front of that pit box there. They're usually yellow in the middle, but I think that that will do nicely. So we'll just copy those lines. And we'll copy them down in front of every garage here. So yeah, there we go. We have got our pit boxes in. Just a little bit of extra decoration to help improve the realism for this. And again, I won't do this now, but when it comes to the detail and time lapse, there is also pit crew props that we have, which are like super cool. So I will definitely use some of these. And we've got literally the full crew, the tyre crew, the guy with the sign as well. So we'll definitely be using a lot of these when it comes to the detail and time lapse, just in a couple of pit boxes, as though like they're waiting for the car to come in and that sort of thing. We will have them all 4 sides, obviously, 4 tyres being on these cars. Yeah, there we go, we've got our little red team there, and we have got the cars queuing up here, so I will just go ahead and give them names. And so there we go, we have got the cars driving around the track, which is just like so exciting. And I have been through with a bit of traffic manager to slow them down on some corners, because I noticed when they were first going round, they were like zooming off the track here because they were trying to do it at 140 kilometers an hour, which is just unrealistic. So I have gone through and traffic managed a lot of those hairpin corners just to slow them down so they stay on the track nice and realistically. You see as they come up to here, a little bit of slowdown as they go around the corner. And oh yes, I'm just absolutely loving these assets. Just brilliant. Just brilliant. So coming on to the area behind the pit lane here. Now there's a lot of detailing that we need to put into this area. But one thing that I do want to incorporate is some of the team hospitality centres. So they do usually move these around as containers and then build them when they come to the certain racetracks. Not every single racetrack, some already has some there, I know already. Things like Monaco doesn't allow for them within the space. But what I do want to do is put in some buildings which can kind of look and act like the team hospitality centres. What we're really looking for here is quite glitzy buildings. So I'm thinking something like this will be appropriate for certain teams and very much looks like actually how they look when you are in those pit lanes. So let's just drag this back a little bit, and what we're going to do is place some of these in right next to this track here. We need to make sure we're leaving enough space to be able to put in barriers to protect the drivers from crashing into the hospitality centres. So we will, of course, do that. So let's just adjust this road down just a tiny bit more. So that's right in the middle there. And then actually let's extend on this road now so that we've got this running all throughout this area, and we'll just drop it there for the moment. And that means that those buildings are now connected. And we will as well. Let's just bring this down a little bit further, and then we can join up these buildings as well so that they are connected. And we'll need to, of course, turn on anarchy for that. But now all of those buildings should have a road connection. So I'll just go through now and find some other assets that we can use as the team hospitality centres here. So there we go. We have just got 10 office assets in here, and yeah, they're all a little bit mix and match, but they are the kind of similar vibes to what I've seen when I've been in the pit lanes. Kind of very modern looking, lots of nice balconies as well, like this one here. So yeah, hopefully that gives us a similar effect to the actual hospitality centres. Now, of course, for the rest of the pit lane, let's get a lot of surface painter. All of this needs to be concreted, pavement, texture, all the way up here. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we can have a little look at the type of detailing that we're going to be putting in around all of these buildings. So now here, I have been into the pit lanes once in Silverstone a very, very long time ago, but they have the team hospitality centres there, a really nice walkthrough, which will put some planters and make that quite a nice little area for the teams to go in there. But then right behind the pit garages are an awful lot of trailers and trucks, which they are using to transport all of their equipment. So that is what we're going to be putting in here. And I will do most of this in the detail and time lapse, but just to show you the type of thing that we'll be doing. And I'll be trying to avoid these doors here, so we'll be kind of stacking up the lorries a little bit like this, so that they are in between those pit lanes, and we'll just have vast rows of lots of containers and trailers all the way up here. And what I do want to do is try and keep them as consistent as possible in terms of the colours of them. So we'll have like a red team, a white team, etc., blue, and try and keep them in the team colours so that it looks like certain teams are just dropping in their trailers in their particular areas. Because I remember when I was there, I walked past the Ferrari trailers and I had to take a picture next to them because I was just like, oh my god, they're branded in Ferrari stuff. It was so exciting. So exciting. Best day of my life. So yeah, this is what we will do all the way up the pit lane here and make that look like it is the area where the teams come in and dump all of their equipment and their trailers for all of their equipment that then goes into the pit garages and uses to make the hospitality centres. So yeah, we will finish that off in the detail and time lapse, but that just gives you a little taste of what is to come. Now outside the front here, of course, we want absolutely tons and tons and tons of car parking. So what I've actually done for this is gone into the asset editor and created myself a car park, a really, really long one, which just acts as a normal park. So people should be attracted to it and come to it and park in it. Same as our other ploppable car parks. But what this gives us is a really nice long car park effect that we can then intermingle roads throughout. And what I will do is go through it as well and add in a couple of little planters, exactly like we saw in Portugal. But we are going to have an absolute mass of car parking out the front here. So let me just go ahead and drop all that in. And there we go. So what we do need to do is come through with some lights and some planters and some other prop detailing just to make this car park look a little bit less like just a mass concrete graveyard. There's an awful lot of cars already flooding in here because obviously they want to come to the car parks. And the other thing that I will do as well is go ahead and ban traffic on this road here so that people can only walk out of the car parks into the rest of the facility. We'll obviously allow emergency vehicles and garbage collection and stuff like that. But yeah, any regular civilians will only be able to walk out into the rest of the park. So I think now that does just lead me on to an absolutely epic detailing time lapse where we will be coming through and tidying up the car parks as mentioned. We're finishing off the backstage pit area. We will also be going around the entire track with fencing, with runoff area decoration. So putting in some gravel traps, using a bit of a ruin texture to do that. Tidying up a lot of these surfaces here and making it safe for the drivers, like this little cliff corner here. Definitely not safe at the moment. So yeah, an awful lot of detailing to come through and do. And of course, as well, on top of that, I will be putting in some food stalls and some entertainment around the outside as well for those visiting the park. So I will jump into what will be a really long detailing time lapse, and I'll be right back. Okay, so where to begin? Honestly, that was like this literally took me an entire day to detail this. So let's start at the car parks. I mean, yeah, we've just put in basic planters here, a couple of trees dotted around. We've got car parking lights as well. Bit of fencing around the edge just to frame that all off, but I think that's coming quite nicely. A bit of tree detailing here and there. And then we've got big security fences all the way along the top with little checkpoints and barriers for the queue system for people to get through. And we have banned all cars and taxis from getting into this area. So it is just service vehicles, delivery trucks and buses that are allowed through. And the reason why buses are is because I have just added a little shuttle bus system that runs around the entire track, just taking people all the way around to wherever they need to get to. Save their legs. Although I say that, And, well, we have some crazy Sims walking across the track right here. But also people are actually opting to walk all the way over from the downtown, although there is less so now that I have put in the bus, which is good news. Only a couple of people walking there. But yeah, they have been walking all the way over from downtown, which is quite a walk to get here. But now we do have a bus system in as well, taking them from the downtown to the F1 circuit. We can see the buses turning up here in the little coach park that we've added on the side of the car park as well, which I thought was a nice little touch there. And then coming on to the back of the main pit straight here, we've put in lots and lots of flags. We've got whole hospitality areas, places for people to eat. We have put in the traffic park here as well, which obviously you would think there's going to be some go-kart type entertainment at the racetrack. So there we have it, nice and simply with that unique building there. We have got police and fire. We've put in medical backstage here as well as a helicopter depot. Clearly turned off until we put in our helicopters, but that'll be great having helicopters coming to and from here. And then going onto the pit straight, we've got what I was trying to make the safety cars, little sports cars there. Obviously service vehicles and lots of service vehicles round the back here too. A little bit of car parking, and then obviously we filled out our trucks for the teams and for their hospitality centres here. Done a little bit of planter detailing just to make it a bit nicer, because I know they generally look quite nice. And then we go down here and we've got kind of like maybe a car museum, something like that is what I'm trying to make out of these two commercial assets there. We have also put in a little press area with a few press waiting for some of the drivers to come out and greet them, give them an interview. Another little car park for staff and that sort of thing. I have put in a cryopreservatory only because we needed death care in this area, and I think we can get away with that as being a building as part of the backstage there. And then all the way around the track we have got more commercial buildings and eateries, things for people to do, entertainment, that sort of thing. And again, I've taken this Green Cities building here, which quite frankly has a little kind of bike scooter thing on the front, which I thought was useful, and put some NASCAR cars in front of it. And then, yeah, coming up here, exactly, lots of toilet blocks, big wheel for entertainment, lots of places to eat, benches, that sort of thing. A little bit of rocks to cover up some of that tearing, but we have got people hanging around, actually, around some of these places, because I've put in some of the people hangout markers, which is nice to see. And then again, much more of the same. And this is the theme all the way around the track, little toilet blocks, little commercial blocks, mainly situated around where all of the grandstands are, tables as well. I have also around the track put in a couple of little places like this with a few stewards standing around, some recovery vehicles. There's another one just over here as well. There's a couple of little gaps in the track that we can utilise for that reason. Yeah, just coming on around the outside, exactly, more of the same. Toilet blocks, entertainment, places to eat. So, and that is very similar. We've got a big block up here by all of these grandstands across this final corner area here. And again, much more of the same as we come all the way around. And then on the track, I have just finished off by adding a bit more concrete detailing, clearly barriers and floodlights all the way around. I actually decided to use the ruined texture instead of gravel here, because the gravel in Auridon is very kind of muddy almost, so I just didn't think it had the right colour to it for what I wanted. We have used some areas with sand as well, using our sand texture for that. But yeah, trying to detail up all of these corners to that effect. Again, it's very, very similar here. Trying to make that look a little bit sandy, a little bit gravelly as they come off round some of these main hairpins. Lots of barriers all the way around. We have also put in a few screens around some of the grandstands so that they can see the race as it's happening. And lots of billboards as well, dotted around the place. So we have used our Woodpecker's billboard, our Garden Bombers billboard from Turtle. And also, having spoken to Overcharged Egg, we have got a little sponsorship from ILOS here. If you need some fencing, you can go to the ILOS Fencing Egg and Associates company. And we've got a few pop soda billboards dotted around. I think there was some more up over here as well, just around the track. Now we do have one little area as well where I've put in billboards along the side, which I thought was quite a nice little touch there as well. A little bit of tightening detail around that VIP area. Oh, and then on the pit lane as well, we have put in a little pit crews. I've also put in some signs to kind of indicate the teams, but when you actually read them, natural fresh meat, maybe there's a natural fresh meat team. Toothpaste team as well? I don't know. But from further away, when you don't read the signs, it looks kind of cool. And then up this end, I'm absolutely loving how this corner has turned out with the ruined texture, the sand in the middle, tiny bit of water there as well, which is actually like that on the circuit, which I thought was a little bit unusual, having water so close to a racetrack, but it is there in real life. So that is what we have done. And yeah, the cars are travelling pretty fast around the track, so I will create a short of the journey around the track, so look out for that in the coming days and you can watch the cars zoom around the track in real time. They go pretty fast, and yeah, I have used Traffic Manager, as I mentioned before, just to slow them down around some of these corners to make it a bit more realistic. But that is really it. And although it doesn't seem like much, it took an awfully long time. And I have come through actually on the roundabouts as well and done a little bit of decoration here. A little A, Auridon. And with this intersection, I'm pretty pleased how this has turned out as well, with the kind of keep going lane going all the way around the outside of the roundabout. People are using that. It's fairly quiet. Oh, here comes a car. Yeah, people are using it and it seems to be working really nicely. Again, bit of intersection marking tool here just to tidy that all up and a bit of decoration in the middle. And the final thing actually I forgot to point out is that we have put in a little Auridon sign here. Once we give the track a name, please do let me know your suggestions in the comments, as always, and we will pick one. And this is quite an important one for me. I was thinking Auridon Autodrome or Auridrome or something like that, but I'm sure you guys can come up with something far more original. Because, yeah, I just, as mentioned, absolutely love F1. So this is one of my favourite builds that I've ever done. And I think it's come out all right. I hope you guys agree. But for today, that is going to be it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have enjoyed the video, a like below is really, really appreciated. There was a lot of hours that went into this, so I'm really hoping it's well received from you guys. Do let me know your name suggestions in the comments as well. Really keen to give this a cool, quirky, funny, original name. So do let me know your suggestions in the comments. But that is all from me for now. So I will catch you next time. Bye bye.